Welcome to this video on verbs. Verbs are one of the most important parts of speech in English grammar, as they help us to communicate actions, states of being, and occurrences. Simply, verbs are words that describe what a subject does or what happens to it. Without verbs, sentences would be incomplete and communication would be impossible. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the different types of verbs, how they're used in sentences, and some tips for using them correctly. So let's get started and explore the wonderful world of verbs. Here are the different types of verbs in English grammar. Action verbs. Action verbs are used to describe an action that a subject performs. For example, run, jump, dance, sing, write, read, and drive are all action verbs. Action verbs examples: Sarah dances gracefully. Max runs 5 miles every day. The teacher explains the lesson clearly. The birds sing beautifully in the morning. Linking verbs. Linking verbs are used to link the subject of a sentence to a noun or adjective that describes or renames it. But they do not describe an action. For example, be, seem, appear, become, and feel are all linking verbs. Linking verbs example: Amanda seems happy today. The soup smells delicious. He became a successful businessman. Helping verbs. These verbs are used to form verb phrases with other verbs. They help the main verb express an action, state, or occurrence. For example, have, do, be, may, can, and should are all helping verbs. Helping verbs examples: I am reading a book. She has finished her homework. They should study for the exam. He will be going to the party. Modal verbs. Modal verbs express the attitude or mood of the speaker, and indicate the likelihood or possibility of an action. For example, can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will, and would are all modal verbs. Modal verbs examples: You can borrow my car for the weekend. I could have done better on the exam. She may have forgotten her keys at home. We should clean the house before our guests arrive. Regular verbs. These verbs follow a predictable pattern of ed when forming the past tense and past participle. They end simply in ed. For example, walked, talked, laughed, and played are all regular verbs. Regular verbs examples: Maria walked to the park yesterday. He talked for hours on the phone. He played the guitar at the concert. The children laughed at the funny clown. Irregular verbs. These verbs do not follow a predictable pattern of ed when forming the past tense and past participle. Instead, they have unique forms. For example, go becomes went in the past tense, and eat becomes ate. Irregular verbs examples: I went to the beach last summer. She ate sushi for the first time. He wrote a novel in 1 month. The dog dug a hole in the yard. Transitive verbs are verbs that require an object to complete their meaning. The object receives the action of the verb. Examples of transitive verbs: Lucky ate the apple. She threw the ball. The dog chased the cat. The teacher taught the students. Intransitive verbs, on the other hand, do not require an object to complete their meaning. They are verbs that can stand alone and make sense without an object. Examples of intransitive verbs: Father sang in the morning. The sun rose early today. She laughed loudly. The baby slept peacefully. Here are some tips for using verbs correctly in writing and speaking. Choose strong verbs. Instead of using weak verbs like be or have, try to choose more descriptive and specific verbs that better convey the action or meaning of the sentence. Use active voice. In general, it is better to use active voice rather than passive voice when writing or speaking. Pay attention to verb tense. Make sure to choose the correct verb tense for the context of the sentence. Be consistent. When writing or speaking, make sure to use the same tense and mood throughout the entire sentence or paragraph. Avoid using too many helping verbs. While helping verbs are important for creating complex sentences, using too many can make your writing or speech confusing or awkward. Vary your verb usage. To keep your writing or speech interesting, try to vary the verbs you use as much as possible. Edit and revise. Finally, it's important to carefully review and revise your writing or speech to ensure that your verbs are used correctly and effectively. In conclusion, verbs are a fundamental part of English grammar and are essential for effective communication. To use verbs effectively, it's important to choose strong verbs, use active voice, be consistent with tense, and avoid using too many helping verbs. By practicing these tips in your own writing and speech, you can improve your communication skills and convey your message more effectively. Remember, the more you practice using verbs, the more comfortable and confident you will become with using them in your daily communication. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to learn English grammar easily.